Professor Huang, thank you so much for joining us. So immediately, let's start with the situation in Europe. My previous guest, Mr. Ollens, talked about the severe consequence Russia's step in eastern Ukraine. He talked about the severe consequence this may have for U.S.-China relations going onwards 50 years after Nixon's historic visit. What is your take? What could be China's position?
I think it is a very serious situation because it could lead to war or massive confrontation between Russia and the Western countries, especially NATO. And Minister Wang Yi already put it very clearly at the Munich Security Conference. That is, China's position is clear and consistent. That is, China respect all countries' sovereignty and integrity. Territorial integrity, and that including Ukraine. So that's China's position. Now the situation is this, that China is not supportive to what has happened in that area. And China understands that it will take a joint effort, including China, United States, and other Western European countries to have the situation solved peacefully without a war. However, any cooperation needs both sides join hands together. And I think China has extended its hand. If United States or other European countries want to work with China, they have to extend their hands too. The situation is this. Right now, United States see China as an enemy, has to compete with China. Of course, this competing is very hostile. It's not a friendly competition. Has to take all the policies possible, try to contain China like they did to the Soviet Union with a Cold War mindset. Given such a situation, it would be very difficult for China to work with the United States effectively, at least, to solve the situation or to manage the situation. So I think that's China's position. And it is, let me repeat, it is not China does not want to work with the United States and other countries to manage or to solve the problem. It is United States has to change its position and to work with China just like China does.
How is the situation, the difference that China may have with Russia in terms of the situation concerning Ukraine, how does that impact U.S.-China relations? Is Russia an obstacle in China-U.S. relations?
I think that Russia has Russia's national interests. And now Russia's being a little bit looks like aggressive, but you have to understand, after the former Soviet Union disintegrated, collapsed, United States and NATO has been pushing eastward, always from 1999, 2001, 2008, 2014, and now, try to expand NATO, which is a product of the Cold War. So this, frankly, has made Russia feel threatened, because if you look this belt for Russia as a kind of buffer zone, security buffer zone, which is, from Russia's point of view, is very, very important, utmost important Russian security. That is from Belarus to Ukraine to Georgia and to Central Asia. That's the last buffer zone Russia has for its national security. But NATO's push eastwards has tried to take all those in, and then in Putin's word, that put Russia naked in front of Western threat. Especially in 2008, the United States has, posted the anti-missile system in the Eastern European countries, right on the doorstep of Russia. So all of this, of course, Russia has the right and the capability to push back. And this is a pushback. To solve this issue, we think that, just like Minister Wang Yi said, I think that's also China's position. We have to take everyone's security interest in mind. We cannot undermine the other's security, benefit my security. That's not fair. So therefore, the bottom line is this, that is, if we take Russia's security concerns seriously, then all sides should sit down, just like what happened on January 26th, sit down, try to negotiate, try to use diplomacy, not guns, to solve this issue. Of course, again, China's position is that China respects everyone's sovereignty and territorial integrity. That's China's principle. But also China does not want to intervene into others' internal affairs. And most importantly, China is firmly against using war, using force as a means to solve this issue. China, as we know, always insists on the peaceful development. And Chinese people love peace and try everything possible to protect peace.
Talking about peace, the opinion, or one opinion, is that the historic visit of U.S. President Richard Nixon in 1972 eroded into a half-century-long peace in Asia, which benefited greatly countries in the region. What is your understanding of the situation?
Yes, I agree with that. And one of the major or fundamental consequences of Nixon's visit is that it makes China and United States engage with each other, which means all the major issues, China and the United States has established a kind of foundation to talk with each other, to manage any crisis or tensions together, so therefore make peace possible and absolute. And as we know that after Nixon's visit to China, we did have quite a few crises in the region. For example, the Taiwan crisis in 1995, 1996, the North Korean nuclear crisis, and some crisis or tension in the South China Sea. All those crises could lead to war because we have witnessed the other crises in the western part of the world, like Georgia crisis, now Ukraine crisis, and Bosnia crisis, and so forth. We see that how the failure of major powers involved in the crisis, the failure for them to solve the issue peacefully, the failure for them to sit down and talk through it rather than to point the gun at each other. We see the result, the disaster. But in all those crises in the Pacific, Taiwan crisis or South China Sea crisis, or most of all North Korean nuclear crisis, China insists hold on to this strategy of peaceful development. China tried to talk with all the involved parties, including United States, of course. So therefore, we have this peace for 50 years. What I'm trying to say is that, yes, we should give the credit to the United States, should give the credit to Nixon's visit, which, put a kind of conditions for long-term peace. But we should also recognize China's effort working with the United States to keep the peace, even though we do have quite a few crises in the past 50 years.
The world has changed a lot. Looking ahead for the next 50 years, what kind of relationship should define the relationship between China and the United States? Does the definition of competition make that job possible?
I think that it is still possible. Competition can be put in a positive perspective, just like athletes, they're competing with each other. But this competition has to meet three conditions. Number one, has to follow the rules. Both sides have to follow exactly the same set of rules. Number one. Number two, has to be fair, has to be equal. You cannot have an unequal competition. In other words, both sides have to take the other side as an equal part. Last but not the least, the third part has to produce public goods. A good competition must produce public goods to benefit everyone in this competition. Nowadays, I just want one more point. That is, when a country is weak, maybe you can say that it has to be peaceful because it is weak. But now China is strong and we're getting stronger. And that is more difficult for China to maintain, to be consistent on this peaceful development strategy. Of course, there is one example China will not follow, will not learn. That is United States. We know that United States has been very strong, number one strong power. But look at in the past 50 years, what China should learn a lesson from United States is not to use force to solve all the dispute with others, because that is destructive and that is also self-destructive. I think the United States has shown China a very vivid and solid, effective examples what China need to do or need not to do when China becomes stronger and stronger in this world.
50 years ago, it was U.S. national interest that drove Nixon to China. Would you say that now the motivations to engage with China is less from the side of the United States? Therefore, the prospect of conflict, confrontation is higher, basically more dangerous for the world?
I think it all depends how you define your fundamental interest. how you see the future. If the United States thinks that China's rise will inevitably challenge U.S. hegemony, it will inevitably threaten U.S. national security. If the system is like that, of course, it is very difficult. It is very hard to say United States still have any incentives to work with China. But if you say the global peace, the world peace is more important, because after all, United States and China live in the same world, and world peace and security and the prosperity works for both countries. So if that's the case, then we have the United States to maintain the peace we all, uh, 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 cherish first. And second, if United States believe that working with China rather than confronting China works for U.S. long-term interests better, because after all, in today's situation, I myself, I do not believe China or United States can overcome or can prevail over the others. That's not the case.
Hopefully 50 years later, when we look back, we can say we both did the right thing. Thank you very much, Professor Huang Jing, for your great insights.
Thank you.